Exhibit Q1, page 27, all the way to page 56, because that's the missing part of the bundle that you do not have,
Mine goes up to page 26, so we can just add the additional annexures, and then, I think, should we not do that right now?
We can do that immediately, Chairman, and we'll also
get that.
We will also finish a file divider so that Muofhe's statement is clearly separate from the matters you're dealing with this morning.
Okay.
Thank you for the indulgence, Chairman.
Good morning.
Morning, Chair.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair.
Well, I've said morning twice already.
Chair, I'll be leading the evidence of Advocate Ramathlodi. May I ask that the witness be sworn in?
Okay, all right, thank you. You might have to raise your voice, Ms. Buthelezi.
I'll do so, Chair.
Thank you.
Please state your full names for the record.
Ngoako Ramathlodi.
Do you have any objection with taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Correct.
Do you swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Ramathlodi.
Morning, Chairperson.
Thank you very much for coming forward to assist the Commission. You will know, and everybody knows in the country by now, I think, that I've been urging past and present ministers and directors general to come forward and assist the Commission with whatever they might know that falls under the terms of reference. So I appreciate the fact that you have come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. It's just a bit far.
Yes, Ms. Buthelezi, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate Ramathlodi. Your evidence today, we will be focusing on the term of reference 1.1 up to term of reference 1.3. I will emphasize term of reference 1.1 and 1.3, and I'll read the same to you. Your evidence will be focusing on the Commission's inquiry on whether and to what extent and by whom attempts were made through any form of inducement or for any gain of whatsoever nature to influence the members of the National Executive, including the deputy ministers, office bearers, and or functionaries employed by the office bearers of any state institution or organ of state. This also include the directors of the boards of SOEs. I'll then move to 1.3 whether the appointment of any member of the National Executive, functionary, or any office bearer was disclosed to the Gupta family or any other unauthorized person before such appointment were formally made or announced. And if so, whether the president or any member of the National Executive is responsible for such conduct. That will be the focus of your evidence today, Advocate Ramathlodi.
Ms. Buthelez, I don't know whether what you read there in terms of the terms of reference doesn't include dismissals and appointments of members of the executive. I don't remember hearing that part, you reading that part. Am I correct? You didn't read that part? Well, if you didn't read it,
I didn't read it.
You didn't read it?
Yes, but
Why does his evidence not fall under that as well?
It should.
Yeah, you see, it's important if you are going to slot the evidence of a witness under a particular term of reference. It's important that you do so only if you are sure that that's all it falls under, because otherwise, if you slot it under a particular term of reference and later on it transpires that actually it could fall or should fall under another one, there may be a problem. So otherwise, better if you don't slot it unless you are sure.
I understand.
Okay.
Chairperson.
All right.
Advocate Ramathlodi, your evidence should also cover the events that may have led to your appointment and dismissal as a member of the cabinet.
That remains the position, irrespective of the fact that the witness might not himself see it is evident as falling under a particular term of reference. I know, having read Mr. Ramathlodi's statement, that he might not be able to say, I was removed from a particular position because of this and that and that. But the fact that he might not himself be able to say that doesn't preclude the commission, if there is enough evidence, from making that conclusion.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Ramathlodi, before you there is a file or a bundle of document Q1. If you look at pages from page 1 up to 26 of that document, that is the statement that you made for the commission, and on page 6 of the same, page 5 of the same bundle, there is a signature that appears at the bottom of that page. Do you confirm that that is your signature?
Yes, I confirm.
And do you confirm that the document that I've referred to, it's the statement that you made for the
Correct.
commission together with its annexures?
I confirm.
Thank you.
And you confirm that the contents of the statement are true and correct?
They are indeed true and correct, Chair.
Thank you.
Advocate Ramathlodi, I would like you to give us your background relative to yourself being the member of the ANC, as well as the position that you have held within our government from 1994 to date.
Well, I joined the NC in 1977 in Botswana, Gaborone. My commander was Dr. Wallace Rute. My first political commissar is our current ambassador to the United Nations, Mr. Machila. My security detail, former Commissioner Tim Williams. Then I was introduced back to the country to begin to lead the students' movement in South Africa. I was part of those who formed COSAS and AZASO in 1979. I have recruited and trained many people, like Ephraim Mghali, Peter Makawa, Colin Shabani, Derek Hanekom, the current minister, and his wife. I trained them in Zimbabwe. I left the country in 1980 under a lot of pressure, and then I joined the exiled in Lesotho. That's where I schooled, and I was made head of the political department in Lesotho under Chris Hani, who was my commander at the time. In that capacity, I trained people like Honorable Nyami Boy in Lesotho and many others. So basically, that is my history. I trained in Angola and in the Soviet Union then for commander's course. Then I was then sent to Zimbabwe to head the political military council of the NC. And when Ndata Makhathini demised, Comrade Thabo Mbeki, who was in the office of the president, then was given the portfolio of foreign affairs. So I was transferred from Harare and taken to the president's office in Lusaka. So I worked for President Oliver Tambo as a speechwriter and also as a personal secretary. I belonged in that capacity to a small group of us. It was Jack Simons, it was President Tambo, it was Mabitse Edwin, and it was myself who were constituting a core in the office of the president in terms of analyzing events which were unfolding in our country. We are supported in that regard by Dr. Freni Jinala, who was in London, because she had access to the media, so she could send us newspaper cuttings so that we can have a look at what is happening in South Africa at the time. I was then Secretary of the Control Commission of the NC, which was composed of Secretary General, of Joe Slobo, of Dan Tlome, of President Tambo, and others. That body was responsible for prosecuting the struggle both inside South Africa and outside South Africa. I think in brief, that's what I want to give us. So I've been a member of the National Executive from 1991 up to date. I'm still one today as I speak. Upon our return, I then got elected the head of the NC in the Northern Transvaal then. I went to teach at the University of the North after that. And then one of my students is here that came in to listen to my testimony. He just reminded me.
So you have kept ties for a long time.
So then I became Premier of Limpopo, then Northern Transvaal, 1994. I served 2 terms, I did 10 years, 94 to 2004. And then I became, in 2009, I became head of the NC elections. And I went to Parliament, became head of the Constitutional Development Committee, where I met the chairperson himself. I was serving in the Service Commission,
yes.
Judicial Service Commission. Now, I was then appointed Deputy Minister of Correctional Services. That was in 2010, yes. And we came back from the elections in 2014, and my wish was not to go back to government. And I communicated that to the officials of the NC, because I had other business interests which were being compromised by me being in government. Anyway, they insisted that I should go back to government, and I went to government as Minister of Mineral Resources, of Minerals. When ministers are appointed, normally the exercise begins in the afternoon after the president has taken an oath. So many of us spend sleepless nights with telephones waiting to be called. If by morning you have not been called,
sometimes waiting and the call doesn't come.
it doesn't come. And if it doesn't come, you know, would you like to China in the language which we use in Angola? When will they take you to the front? You have just lost the opportunity. Anyway, I did receive my call. It was around midnight, 2014, and I happened to be staying the same yard as Matlambandlovu there. There are ministerial residences there. So I then arrived there, found the president. When my time came, he was sitting with the Secretary General of the NC, and I had left other candidates on the other side, outside. And when you get into that chamber, into the room with the president, you are informed of what you are going to be and so on, and you then leave. You don't go back to the other guys. That's the procedure, the protocol.
Sorry, I was saying in paragraph 1.4, you tell us about.
Sorry?
You served, as you said in 2014, you were appointed as the Minister of
Minerals.
Minerals.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I just want him to finish that part here. I think you.
What happens is you are not supposed to go and tell others what you have just seen in there. You leave through another door and you go home. And possibly worried. But what worried me at the time, there was a strike which had been going on for about 6 months in the minerals, in the platinum belt. It's only when I reached home that I realized that they put me against a strike. Anyway, we did manage to stop the strike within a month of my appointment, which I thought was great for the country and so on. Then I began to receive phone calls, congratulatory messages from well-wishers and everybody, and I was obliging everybody.
Yes.
Amongst these people, I got a call from the president's son, Duduzane Zuma, who wished to see me and convey his congratulations in person.
Yes.
At the time, I was very busy. I had just gone into a very difficult ministry at the time, so I didn't have time to entertain personal engagements with people. So I kept on pushing back.
Minister, if, Advocate Ramathlodi, if I may ask, how long have you known Duduzane Zuma?
Well, I know Duduzane as a youngster from exile.
Yes.
But we became much, much closer when we arrived here at home. What happened is the former president was being charged with corruption in Pietermaritzburg. Now, and I was then put in a team which the then Secretary General Kgalema Motlanthe to support the then Deputy President in his trials. So we spent...
And that would have been around 2005, 2006.
Yeah, 6 years, yes. So each time the president would appear in court, we would be there with Duduzane and the sister. Yes. So we got quite close in that sense. I was also put in a team that supported the president, which was established by the National Executive, which was led by Lindy Wesisulu. And in that team, there was Judge Heath, there was Professor Sipe, there was Ngoako Ramatlhodi, there was Tony Yengeni, there was Collins Chamani.
But you say there was Judge Heath?
This team was meant to manage the issues of the trials of the deputy president then.
But what was the judge doing there in that team?
Who? Heath.
I thought you said there was Judge Heath.
He was there. He was there. We took.
Is that is after he was no longer in active service.
Yes, correct.
Oh.
So we
still sounds strange.
Yeah. So we put a multifaceted team, which was both offensive and defensive, in terms of communication, in terms of managing the public perspective, in terms of the legal inputs from people like Judge Heath. Or there was also, I forgot his name now, he's in Cape Town, but he was the other legal mind. We took in Professor Sipe Sepe on the basis of the political inputs that he used to make whilst he was still professor in Venda at the university. So we had a team like that, which then had to interrogate each and every phase of the appearance in court and to come out with the strategies how to get him off the hook. And I believe we did very well in that regard. We got him out, Deputy President Zuma.
Yes.
Now,
well, I just said, Mr. Ramathlodi, I just said it still sounds strange that a judge was involved in that, but on reflection, I think Judge Heath may have left. I think he definitely had left the bench, and
Correct.
he may have, at that stage, assumed the position of being an advocate, but people knew him as Judge Heath, so that is how they would refer to him. So I suspect that that is what.
I think that is correct.
Yeah.
Chair. I think that is
Thank
correct.
you. Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Abdul. If I may interject, how long have you known the former President Zuma?
I met President Zuma when I was head of the RPMC in Harare. That's 1986.
Yes.
That's 1986. He came from Lusaka to come and see me, to look at a few operations and so on. And then I got to know him. I did at the time. And beard, he was bearded. But today, you look at him, he looks like me, more or less. So I've known him since then. And each time I go to Lusaka to report to the PMC, I would find him there as head of intelligence of the NC. Because what happened, we had an incident in Angola in 1984 when there was a rebellion in our camps. Now, we had to put that rebellion down with the force of arms. And after that, the NC was a signatory to the Vienna Convention on War. Now, we instituted a commission to evaluate if, in fact, our response to that incident of 1984 was in conformity with the Vienna Convention. And it was led by the late Mr. Stewart. There was Mrs. Shope in that commission and several other senior members. And they found that we had exceeded the limits. In other words, there were elements of summary executions of some of the people. So the then head of intelligence, Mzwai Pilis, had to take political responsibility and resign as head of intelligence of the NC. So because we're a very principled organization, when we are wrong, we would correct ourselves. And that's how John Tantla and Jacob Zuma became joint heads of intelligence of the NC to replace Mzwai Pilis. And so I would then meet him in that capacity.
Thank you. If I may take you to the paragraph 3 of your statement, you've already told that you got a lot of congratulatory messages, including one from Duduzane Zuma. Then in paragraph 3 of the statement, you mentioned that you got a message that Duduzane wanted to see you. Would you please expand on what was the purpose of this meeting that is referred to in paragraph 3?
Well, he was insisting, I think he's 6 months into office at Minerals or so on. And I realized maybe I should see and give him a hearing.
Yes.
And I met him at St. George's Hotel during one of the NEC meetings. And then he then said to me that it's a pity that we are meeting under the circumstances that I was meeting him. I asked him to elaborate. And then he then said to me, there is a rumor he has heard from two sources that have been bad-mouthing him and his business associates, and basically saying they're involved in crime.
Did he tell you who were those sources?
Because later when he mentioned Ajay Gupta, so I understood that the business associates to be the Gupta brothers. So I then said to him, to Duduzane, you are as good as my son. I mean, why would I run around bad-mouthing you when you are committing crime? I won't even tell your father. I'll just summon you and ask you, why are you involved in crime? So he then said to me, he's told his father the story, and I then responded by saying, I'm going to tell your father what I said to you. And then he suggested meeting AJ Gupta for me to explain. I said, I don't know AJ Gupta, and I owe him nothing. So you can go and tell him that I'm not seeing him, because I've not bad-mouthed anybody.
Yeah. And, sorry,
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
did you say that was about a month or so after your
No, about
appointment?
6 or so months after.
About 6 months or so?
Yeah, because he had been pushing to see me. Yeah. It
okay.
was quite a while, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll take it this was around the end of 2014.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
And you mentioned that he told
I'm
you
sorry,
that-
Ms. Buthelezi again. Mr. Ramathlodi, when I read your statement, I did detect that in some areas where certain events happened, there is no indication of dates, whereas I think it might be important. So we might be asking you to try and remember, not necessarily the exact dates, but maybe around about what time certain things happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. In paragraph 6 of your statement, you say he told you that he had from his sources. My question was, who are those sources?
He mentioned two names, one from India, he's a businessman, and a local fellow that I did not know. So I said to him, he needs to come back to me with the names in writing, which he never did. So that conversation ended there.
Thank you.
Let me check. People at the back, are you able to hear everything properly? Oh, yes, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And the meeting that he was suggesting that you should have with AJ Gupta, what would have been the purpose of this meeting?
He wanted me to explain to AJ Gupta that I did not badmouth them. That's what he said to me was the purpose of the meeting. My own reflection is that they'd been trying to meet me for a long time and I was refusing. So they had to create a story and hoping that maybe I would then go and meet this fellow called AJ Gupta.
Thank you. On paragraph 12 of your statement, you also mentioned another, I'll say a request that was conveyed to you via Advocate Muofhe. Who is Advocate Muofhe?
At the time, he was my special advisor. And then the Guptas sent word to him, asking him to arrange a meeting between me and them. And we both dismissed that request.
And when was this, roughly?
I think Advocate Muofhe can assist us because this one is reported in the newspapers as well. We'll find it in this.
Okay,
It is
thank you.
public knowledge.
Thank you. But in terms of your recollection, when Mr. Duduzane Zuma asked you if you could meet Ajay Gupta and explain that you had not been bad-mouthing them, was that the first request that was being made for you to meet the Guptas after you took the portfolio of mineral resources?
The direct request came from Duduzane to me. The other one went to Advocate Muofhe. And there was also an issue about the DJ who was requested to increase the number of the new age newspapers that were in the department, in other words, to buy more.
Yes.
And I advised him that we can't do that. We have no justification
Yes.
to buy more papers than I found there.
Yes, yes.
There was also...
Or maybe I must just clarify. I know you might have more for after your meeting with Duduzane Zuma. So I'm just looking at the period before that, whether there had been any attempts that had been made either to you or to anyone in the department, including your advisor, or whether this one to the advisor came after your meeting with Duduzane Zuma. I'm trying to locate in terms of time, because I think you said you met Duduzane Zuma about 6 months after your appointment.
I estimate that it could be about 6 months. And Muofhe issue would have come possibly before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank
And
you.
You made reference to Annexure A. If you may turn to page 6 of the bundle.
Page what? 6.
Page 6, yes. There's an article there by EWN. I'll read the first 2 paragraphs of that article. The Public Service and Administration Minister Ngoako Ramathlodi's spokesperson has confirmed that Ramathlodi was invited to a social engagement by the Gupta family shortly after he was appointed to his previous job as Mineral Resources Minister. But the minister's office says he declined the invitation. This invitation, what does this article relate to? Which invitation? Is it the invitation by Duduzane, or is it the one that was conveyed to you through Advocate Muofhe?
Well, they were pushing from all angles, so I can't ascribe it to one invitation. So they were pushing to get me into a meeting.
Thank you.
And then there was also an attempt to get me to appear on their breakfast shows, the so-called SABC breakfast shows.
Yes.
Yes.
Before you tell us about that one, Mr. Ramathlodi, I know that it may be a long time and you may not have been keeping records necessarily, but if you are able to place them in terms of their sequence, which one came first, which one came after that, that would be helpful. But if it is not possible, you can just say that I can't remember which one happened first, but this did happen. So,
no.
So it's just an attempt to see you get appointed as Minister of Mineral Resources in May, I think, 2014, and then you have this request from Duduzane Zuma to meet with you. You try and push them back for some time, but ultimately you give him an audience about or around 6 months after appointment, and then you say that the approach to Mr. Muofhe probably came before your meeting with Duduzane Zuma. So as you go on, if you just make an effort to try and see where you locate in terms of time or sequence, that will be helpful. Thank you. Ms. Buthelezi,
I might want to see if we can get some of the diaries from my former PA, if she's
yes.
got, yeah.
No,
which could assist.
If that can happen, that would be helpful. So do the best you can, and we'll understand that that is subject to trying to find diaries which might be more accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On paragraph 13, you spoke about the request that was made through the DG, Dr. Ramojo, that you increase the order of the order volume of New Age newspapers. When was this made, if you could still remember?
I believe Dr. Ramojo should be able to give us a rough estimate of that, because he's the one who talked to me about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you then spoke about the mining indaba that was in Cape Town.
Well, I'm sorry. You may have said this, Mr. Ramathlodi, already, but I guess it's important for you to place on record that you did refuse to authorize the increase of the New Age, because that's what is in your statement. And then he can give more details about the issue. You confirm that?
I can confirm, yes. He'll give us more details. I think soon after I came to minerals, that one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And you spoke about the mining indaba that was in Cape Town and what you were told about the Guptas hosting the department in their Cape Town home. Can you elaborate on that?
Before I do that, let me go back a bit to say, I was mentioning the issue of the breakfast shows, which I declined. I've never appeared. There were some ministers who were doing that. I was not interested in it. And maybe you might be interested in understanding why my attitude.
Yes.
Now, my attitude, I didn't know these people. They came into South Africa, and one day I met correctional services. An aeroplane lands at our Waterkloof Air Force Base, carrying wedding and people. That for me was the last insult. I mean, it was a step at the back for those who died, because there are men who died when I was there with them. That you get foreigners, they come in here, and then they land a wedding charter in our Air Force Base. So we had a meeting of the security cluster because I was sitting in correctional services. I told my fellow ministers that this is the last insult. We can't have this happen in our country. And from the NC side, we told the president, don't attend that wedding. Don't do it. Because we've just messed up. And not only did they land there, they actually got even the escorts of the security, everything too. That place there.
Yes.
Now, if we have been through war, like I have, there are things you don't tolerate. And that explains my attitude towards the Guptas.
Yes. But you just referred to you and the group telling the president, by which obviously
Billy Maseta, myself, and
president.
a few others, we told him, don't go to that wedding.
Yes.
And on this occasion, he listened.
He listened.
He didn't attend that wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
And from what you say, it seems to me your group, whatever the group was that was talking to him, you made it quite clear that what had happened was completely unacceptable.
No, we told him, Mr. President, you don't do things like that. Whether you knew or you didn't know, this one is not acceptable.
Was it your understanding that the landing of those aeroplanes there could not have happened without his knowledge or approval, or not necessarily. I'm just asking that because
Yes,
you are
yes.
saying you said to him, you know, I think you must tell me if I didn't hear properly. You have messed up. This is not acceptable. This is not done, or something like that.
We said to him, Mr. President, it's unacceptable that a private jet carrying wedding party from another country lands at our Air Force base. We have fought for this base to be under our command. So it's not acceptable. So don't graze this thing by going to the wedding, in addition to what has already happened. Now, our sons at the time, let me speak about me.
Yes.
I had a feeling that it could not happen without his knowledge. And in fact, there was talk like that because the chief of protocol in the presidency, Ambassador, I forgot his name, he was in Holland now because after that he had to be redeployed to Holland.
Yeah.
So apparently that fellow got a call from number one, as they call him those days, and
Yes.
and then he authorized the landing. Yeah.
That's important. Thank you.
And where did you hear, or when, where did you hear about that from, Minister, if I may ask? How did you learn about what you have just told us, that number one was called?
Well, we have meetings in NC, we talk amongst ourselves. So I can't say I got it from so-and-so or the other one. But my impression was precisely that he actually authorized it.
Thank you.
And everything else that you have had since then, in terms of that incident that you subsequently had, hasn't changed your sense that he must have known?
You see, Chair, presidents have got friends in the business community and so on. They do see people and so on. But these ones, I felt they were insulting even the president. Because what they were doing was to show off. You know, that they captured the republic is theirs. They are not presidents, but they can land at an Air Force base.
Well, I'm very interested that you give us the picture as you see it of this incident, because it's quite clear from what you have said to us that you really found this whole thing so unacceptable. So it's just important that we get that full picture. So I just invite you to talk more about it, to give us that sense how repugnant it was to you and why so. I know you have already said some things that if you have been to war and something like this happens, what your reaction would be like.
Chair, what happens at Air Force Base of South Africa is only heads of states land there. And when they land, we receive them with all the protocols. Either one minister or the other is sent to go and do that. But on this occasion, this aeroplane from India just landed there. And there was preparations, because even the traffic cops were escorting those buses which were going to Northwest.
Yeah.
So it was a well-planned reception, which could not happen without higher authority knowing. Well, they mobilized even the municipalities to provide security for those buses to go there. So I think it was quite heavy for us, some of us.
Did you say something like a few minutes ago that it was a show-off, as far as you are concerned, of this family showing that they've actually captured?
They were disrespectful of the
country.
president. They were disrespectful of the president, of the country. They were disrespectful of us. That's the essence. They were totally disrespectful.
Because of what the Air Force Base represents in a country.
And the one which is the
Yes.
headquarters
Yes.
in Pretoria.
Yes.
Not just any Air Force base, that one. Some things are very secret to us, those of us who have gone through the military things. Like a flag
Yes.
is sacred. When we hold that flag, it's so sacred. So that Air Force is not a place where you can just go and play around.
No, thank you very much. You can keep your mic on. I think it won't disturb anything.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate Ramatlhodi,
Just a minute. And then after I spoke to Duduzane, I went to his father.
thank you.
We met in Cape Town. I told him, look, your son is saying this and this, that I'm bad-mouthing him, but I can assure you that I told him that if he is misbehaving, I will summon him like his uncle or his father, so to speak. And so, Mr. President, that's what I told your son. Then he said, "Bulungile mfana yethu," then left me. Yeah, I'm done with that.
Bulungile mfana ngithi being, it's all right, what? It's all right, my maid, or is it all right, whatever. Well, I'm sure somebody will give a translation. I see Ms. Leah Kabashe is...
Yes, no, he said it's all right. It's all right, mfana yethu, it's all right.
Well, I guess Ms. Mutilez is the one who should be assisting.
Right.
I will say it's all right, my body. I'm not sure if it's Thank you.
Okay.
Advocate Ramatlhodi, if we may proceed with your statement, it appears that you were also invited, there was an invite that you be hosted by the Guptas in Cape Town during mining in Daba. Would you
No, I was not invited.
Yes.
What happened? We have an annual mining gathering in South Africa, in Cape Town. We've got another one in Australia, we've got another one in Canada. Those are called mining intervals, the big ones.
Yes.
So I was in China with Dr. Ramonja, my Director General. So he was relating to me how they used to operate under the previous ministers.
This was soon after your appointment, or a few months after your
Yeah,
appointment.
it was before our local mining in Daba, which would have been around 2015, early in the year, because it happens around February, March.
Yes.
Something like that. So he told me that during the mining in Daba, all the DG and DDGs from all my departments, minerals,
Yes.
would then be hosted by the Guptas in their Cape Town home.
In their home?
Yeah, in Cape Town, yes. They would then call other business people to attend there.
In a private home?
Yes, in their home. DDGs of the
A
department.
government thing?
I think we must inquire, we must ask them. Those who are there, they should be able to confirm if that is true or not. But what I did was to say to the DG, he was not persuading me to do it, but I told him, but this will not happen on my watch. There's no one who's going to the Gupta's home to be hosted by them. But the way they operate, they were demonstrating power, these people. What they do, they will call this whole department there, and then call people who would be investors and say, you see, we've got the department, is here.
Sure.
So we want you to do this
come
and
here.
that and that. So they're demonstrating power.
That you
Call the whole department.
we are in
The whole
charge.
department. The whole department, it would go there. Now,
And you said even the minister will be hosted.
the minister would be there, the previous ministers. They can speak for themselves when they appear here.
Yes. That's Minister Shabangu, as you understand, or,
yeah,
or
Susan
even the
Shabangu.
previous one.
Yeah.
So,
Shabangu specifically.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
No, but, well, we will hear evidence from, in due course, Dr. Ramansha, who, from what you say, who obviously had been at some of those. And, but the whole idea that a government in Daba, a government department in Daba must be held at the private home of some private citizens.
No, Chair. The Indaba itself would be held in Cape Town Hall, whatever, the big thing.
Oh, okay.
But in the evening,
Yeah.
they then summon the department to go to the Guptas.
For what? Sure.
To demonstrate their power, to be, because they would intimidate people, these guys, and say to them, look, if you don't cooperate with me, you won't get a license from minerals. If you don't do this, you won't get that. That's what they were doing. They were actually demonstrating that to intimidating possible investors, because the investors come from all over the world. When we're talking Indaba, they're coming from across the world, they're coming to look for opportunities in South Africa. So they invite selected people to come and meet the department in their home.
Yeah, no, I mean, all kinds of questions that I'm thinking of should not be for you because you have never been in those. You
Maybe I should have been there to see what.
But, I mean, what is it that could not have been dealt with at the venue where Indaba was held? And why should there be another gathering involving everybody, I guess, or most people who were at Indaba? You know, that's...
Chair, the Guptas had the power to summon the president to their home, and they would boast about it.
Well,
Now, they had the power to then summon ministers who were wet behind the ears, who can just run there and so they call you to your home. They don't even try and meet you in a hotel, or they want you in their home.
if you can, please just tell us more about that, because we have had evidence from, among others, Mr. Jonas and Ms. Meto, both of whom told me that they had on different occasions been to the Gupta residence. And I think one of them, but it may be that Mr. Jonas too, one of them, or both of them, said, you know, the Gupta brother that I was talking to at the Gupta residence, I think he said, told me that, or must go to his evidence, in effect that the Gupta said the former president would do whatever they wanted, or something to pretty much along those lines, that if there were ministers who were not cooperating, they would call them to their residence. So what you are telling me seems to corroborate what I've heard already. So I don't know whether you might have any specific instances, even ministers that you know were called into there. And I must just say that I ask you that question knowing that maybe questions, but we are investigating something very serious for the country, and we need to get to the truth. So if you do remember, please let me know.
It's public knowledge, Chair, that Minister Faroe and Minister Lani, before the appointment, they were camping there in Sextol.
They were camping there, you say?
Yeah, we stay there.
Yeah.
Go there and public it's public knowledge. They,
Yeah.
I can point out those. And
Yes.
they're not even ashamed to tell you we were Gupta minister, so bad.
Is that so?
I think when they were should explain how many times they went there before.
Yes. No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Advocate Ramatlhodi,
Please raise your voice. Raise your voice.
as a deputy
Can I repeat something? Repeat, just say something.
Yes.
The National Executive Chair who would raise this issue with the President, would say to you, this same relationship of yours with this case is toxic. Why don't you end it? And we can talk as high and as out there, like when we finish, when it was the meeting, you said, those people are my friends because they helped my children when I was a person and brother. They helped, they helped, and they gave them jobs when no one wanted me. What are you asking of me? Now, he was refusing to budge on that one. Yeah.
And you say you would have been at
It's national narrative. Because people were very uncomfortable with that relationship.
Yes.
Because it was humiliating him.
Yes.
We cared about him,
Yes.
you know? Besides then see, but someone who was known, he's a nice person. You know, when I'm with him, but it didn't pick ground. But the things were a bit irrational at the time.
And you think this would have happened a few times where the NEC or some in the NEC would say, Mr. President, please continue this friendship.
Yeah, he did. Not once.
But
Some get the minutes of the NEC will see some things in there. Is that style of leadership was such that we made issues when we finish, because we don't vote in the NEC. What we do, we try to reach sufficient consensus. I must put it that way. But let me summarize the last speaker. He can decide to go in a tangent against the majority view.
oh,
None of us can compare to him and say, Mr. President, you are Mr. President, because he's the last speaker.
yes.
So some decisions might not show in the minutes
Yes.
if they were not properly recorded, but are supposed to peruse and see if we can say anything.
Okay, no, thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Thank you. If I may take you back to your statement, paragraph 15, you talk about a call, another call that you see.
Sorry, Mr. President, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. I got to make a proposition and use my comment on it. So if you want to comment, you might say so. So from what you say, could it be possible that it was because of, at least among other things, the assistance that Gupta family appears to have given his son or his children, that he may have felt that he had to keep that friendship, whatever the consequences?
That's my impression, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. On paragraph 15, you talk about a call that you received from Duduzane, and that he found the death rate. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, in fact, he demanded, he called and I must